The security guard never spoke. For 3 years, he'd watched visitors pass through the National War Museum, scanning badges, monitoring cameras, ensuring protocols were followed. His uniform was always pressed, his posture military straight, but his eyes, those gray eyes, never lingered on anyone long enough to be remembered. Until the day a decorated general walked past his station and stopped cold. Because there, barely visible beneath the guard's sleeve, was a small insignia that had been officially retired 15 years ago. An insignia that belonged to a unit that didn't exist. And the man wearing it? He was supposed to be dead. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoy stories about hidden identities and the quiet heroes who serve without recognition, subscribe to The Quiet Legends for more compelling narratives that honor those who shaped history from the shadows. The National War Museum stood as a monument to American military history, its marble halls echoing with the footsteps of thousands of visitors each week. Deep within its administrative wing, where tourists rarely ventured, the security checkpoint operated with mechanical efficiency. James Mitchell had worked there for 3 years. He arrived each morning at 0545, 15 minutes before his shift officially began. His routine never varied: check the overnight logs, inspect security camera feeds, ensure all access points were properly secured. By the time other staff arrived, he'd already completed 2 circuits of the building's perimeter. The museum director, Dr. Catherine Reeves, barely acknowledged him beyond perfunctory greetings. To her, he was just another retired military person taking a quiet job in their golden years. The museum employed dozens like him, former soldiers seeking purpose and structure after leaving active service. "Morning, Mitchell," she'd say while rushing past, already absorbed in her tablet. "Morning, ma'am," he'd reply, his voice soft and unremarkable. What Dr. Reeves didn't know, what no one knew, was that James Mitchell wasn't his real name. That this quiet security guard had once commanded the most classified special operations unit in modern military history. That 15 years ago, he'd been declared killed in action during a mission so sensitive it remained redacted even at the highest levels of government. The man the world knew as James Mitchell was actually Colonel Marcus Hale, former commander of Task Force Phantom, a unit that had never officially existed. Mitchell's days passed in comfortable monotony. He'd learned to appreciate the predictability after decades of chaos. No midnight extractions, no hostile fire, no decisions that determined whether people lived or died. Just quiet hallways, metal detectors, and the occasional lost tourist asking for directions. The museum staff treated him with polite indifference. The younger security guard saw him as another old-timer killing time until retirement. The administrative assistants smiled vaguely when passing. The maintenance crew nodded respectfully but never engaged in conversation. Invisibility suited him perfectly. His small apartment 5 miles from the museum was equally unremarkable. Spartan furniture, minimal decoration, nothing that drew attention. His only indulgence was a locked cabinet in the bedroom closet containing medals he could never display and commendations he could never acknowledge. On this particular Tuesday morning, Mitchell noticed an unusual entry in the overnight log. The museum would be hosting a special reception that evening, a gathering of retired generals and Defense Department officials to commemorate the 20th anniversary of Operation Desert Storm. He reviewed the guest list carefully. 37 names, mostly Pentagon brass he didn't recognize. But 3 names made him pause. General Robert Kincaid. Admiral Thomas Webster. Colonel Sarah Chen. All 3 had known Marcus Hale before his death. All 3 had attended his memorial service 15 years ago. Mitchell's jaw tightened imperceptibly. He considered requesting the evening off, but that would break pattern. 3 years without missing a shift. Changing now might draw exactly the attention he'd spent years avoiding. The museum closed to regular visitors at 1,700 hours. By 1730, the Great Hall had been transformed for the evening's reception. White-clothed tables, strategic lighting, and a podium position before a massive American flag. Mitchell took his position at the security checkpoint near the VIP entrance. As guests arrived, he scanned their credentials with practiced efficiency, making brief eye contact before directing them toward the reception area. General Kincaid arrived at 18:15, accompanied by an aide carrying his briefcase. Now in his 70s, Kincaid had put on weight and lost hair, but his bearing remained unmistakably military. Mitchell checked his credentials, nodded professionally, and gestured toward the hall. Kincaid paused, studying Mitchell's face for a fraction too long. "Have we met, son?" "No, sir," Mitchell replied, his voice neutral. "Enjoy your evening." The general nodded slowly and moved on, though his expression suggested uncertainty. Admiral Webster and Colonel Chen arrived together 20 minutes later. Webster had aged considerably since Mitchell last saw him. The man who had once led carrier strike groups now moved with careful deliberation, a cane supporting his left side. Chen, however, looked sharp as ever. Her eyes, always her most distinctive feature, swept the security checkpoint with professional assessment before landing on Mitchell. She stopped. Webster noticed immediately. "Sarah? Something wrong?" "No," she said, but her gaze didn't leave Mitchell's face. "Just thought I recognized someone." Mitchell maintained his composure, though his heart rate had elevated for the first time in years. Chen had always been observant, too observant. During their time in Task Force Phantom, she'd been his intelligence officer, the person who knew him better than anyone outside his immediate family. "Your credentials, ma'am," he said, extending his hand. Chen handed over her badge slowly, still studying him. As Mitchell scanned it, she noticed something that made her breath catch, a small scar on his right hand, just below the thumb. A distinctive mark from a knife wound sustained during an operation in Mogadishu. "Thank you, Colonel," Mitchell said, returning her badge. "The reception is straight ahead." Chen opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it. Webster was already moving forward, and she had no choice but to follow. But she looked back twice before disappearing into the great hall. Mitchell's shift continued without incident for the next hour. More guests arrived, were processed, and proceeded to the reception. Through the checkpoint's glass partition, he could see the gathering in full swing, uniformed officers mingling with civilians, wait staff circulating with champagne. At 19:45, Dr. Reeves approached his station, slightly flustered. "Mitchell, we have a situation. One of the security cameras in the Medal of Honor gallery has gone offline. Can you check it?" "Yes, ma'am." Mitchell left the checkpoint, grateful for the excuse to move. The Medal of Honor gallery was on the museum's third floor, far from the reception. He took the stairs rather than the elevator, his body moving with an efficiency that contradicted his supposed age. The gallery was dark, illuminated only by the display case's soft lighting. Mitchell located the malfunctioning camera, a loose connection, easily fixed. As he worked, he heard footsteps behind him. "You're very good at pretending to be dead." He turned slowly. Colonel Sarah Chen stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the hallway light. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't understand." "The scar on your hand. Marcus Hale got that during the Mogadishu extraction in '98. I was there when it happened." She stepped forward. "The posture. The way you move. The way you checked my credentials without actually looking at them because you already knew who I was." Mitchell said nothing. "They told us you died in Afghanistan. October 12, 2010. I spoke at your memorial service." Chen's voice carried no anger, only confusion. "What the hell is going on, Marcus?" He studied her carefully, calculating risks and options. After a long moment, he spoke in a voice completely different from the soft-spoken security guard, deeper, carrying authority. "That man did die, Sarah. James Mitchell is what's left." Chen closed the gallery door behind her, ensuring privacy. "Explain. Now." Mitchell, Hale, moved to the window overlooking the museum's courtyard. "The Afghanistan operation was compromised before we deployed. Someone in the intelligence chain was feeding information to hostile forces. We walked into an ambush. We know that. The after-action report said. The after-action report was fiction. His voice remained quiet but carried an edge. My entire team was killed in the first 30 seconds. I survived because I'd stopped to check my weapon. By the time I reached the rally point, 23 Taliban fighters were waiting. Chen listened, her military training keeping her expression neutral despite the weight of his words. I eliminated 17 before taking fire to my chest and leg. Should have died there. He touched his shoulder unconsciously. But a local shepherd found me, hid me in his village for 3 months. By the time I recovered enough to make contact, the Pentagon had already declared me Kia and held the memorial service. Why didn't you correct the record? Because during those 3 months, I identified the leak. A deputy director at Defense Intelligence. Someone with access to every classified operation in the Middle East. Hale turned to face her. If I'd come back, he would have known I was investigating him. More operators would have died. So you stayed dead. The agency offered me a choice, official return with a career spent testifying and looking over my shoulder, or permanent retirement with a new identity. I chose invisibility. Chen processed this, her analytical mind working through implications. The leak? Eliminated. Quietly. 2 years after my supposed death. Hale's expression was unreadable. By then, I'd already built this life. James Mitchell had a history, employment records, a military pension under a different service number. Coming back would have meant destroying that and returning to a world I no longer belonged to. Your family. Was told I died serving my country. Which is true, in a sense. Pain flickered across his face. Colonel Hale died in Afghanistan. He's buried at Arlington with full honors. James Mitchell is just a security guard who never served in combat. Chen shook her head slowly. You can't keep living like this. People deserve to know. That I faked my death. That the Pentagon knowingly lied to Gold Star families. Hale's voice hardened. What purpose would that serve except to damage trust in the institution? The truth matters, Marcus. The truth is complicated. Sometimes the lie serves the greater good. Before Chen could respond, both their phones vibrated simultaneously with emergency alerts. They checked the screens, a security notification from the museum's operations center. Suspicious activity detected, south entrance, Chen read aloud. Hale was already moving. That's the loading dock. Away from the reception. They descended the stairs quickly, Hale's training evident in every movement. Years of pretending to be an elderly security guard fell away, revealing the operator beneath. Through his radio, Mitchell, he would always be Mitchell to museum staff, contacted the operations center. Ops, this is Mitchell. I'm responding to the south entrance alert. What's the situation? Unknown individuals attempting unauthorized entry through the loading dock. 2, possibly 3 suspects. We've called DCPD. Hale and Chen reached the ground floor, moving through darkened hallways toward the loading dock. Through a window, Hale spotted 2 figures in dark clothing working on the security door with professional efficiency. This isn't random, Chen whispered. That's a military entry technique. Hale nodded, already assessing the situation tactically. Stay back. I'll handle this. Like hell. I'm coming with you. He shot her a hard look. You're a colonel in dress uniform at a public event. I'm a dead man who doesn't exist. Only one of us can afford to be compromised. Before she could argue, Hale moved through the loading dock entrance with the fluid precision of someone who'd conducted hundreds of similar operations. The 2 intruders were focused on the door's electronic lock, not expecting confrontation from inside. Gentlemen, Hale said quietly, his weapon, a sidearm he'd kept hidden for 3 years, now drawn and steady. That's far enough. Both intruders spun, their hands moving toward concealed weapons. But Hale had the advantage of position and surprise. His voice carried absolute authority. "Don't. You're outmatched and you know it." The lead intruder, a man in his 30s with military bearing, studied Hale carefully. Recognition flickered across his face. "Colonel Hale? That's impossible. You're supposed to be dead." "Yes, I've heard." Hale's weapon didn't waver. "Which means you're working for someone who knows things they shouldn't. Who sent you?" Before the man could answer, Chen emerged from the shadows, her own weapon drawn. "DCPD is 2 minutes out. Start talking." The intruder's partner, younger and visibly nervous, looked to his companion for guidance. "We were hired to retrieve something from the archives," the lead man finally said. "Personnel files from Task Force Phantom. We didn't know, we weren't told you'd be here." Hale's expression darkened. "Someone is cleaning house. Eliminating evidence that Phantom ever existed." He glanced at Chen. "Which means the agency wants permanent deniability. Or someone inside the agency is scared of what those files contain," Chen countered. Sirens echoed in the distance, approaching police. Hale made a decision. "Leave. Now. Tell whoever hired you that the files they want no longer exist. And tell them Marcus Hale is still dead. If they try this again, that might change." The two intruders hesitated only briefly before disappearing into the night. DC Metro Police arrived 3 minutes later, finding only Hale and Chen at the loading dock. They reported attempted burglary, nothing taken, suspects fled. The officers took statements, filed reports, and departed. In the empty loading dock, Chen turned to Hale. "This isn't over. If someone is trying to erase Task Force Phantom's existence, more people are at risk. I'm aware. You can't just go back to being a security guard and pretend this didn't happen." Hale holstered his weapon, his expression weary. "Watch me. Marcus. That's not my name anymore. James Mitchell works security at the National War Museum. He's never conducted covert operations. He's never killed anyone. He just scans badges and monitors cameras." His voice softened. "That's the life I chose, Sarah. What about the operators who are still at risk? What about the families who still think you're dead? The families have closure. Coming back would only reopen wounds that have finally healed." He met her eyes. "As for active operators, I'll make some calls. People who can investigate without being connected to a ghost." Chen studied him for a long moment. "I can't just forget this conversation. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to understand why James Mitchell needs to stay James Mitchell." She nodded slowly. "What if I need to contact you? If more threats emerge?" Hale pulled a card from his pocket, blank except for a phone number written in pencil. "Burner phone. Changes every month. I'll keep you updated with new numbers." "You've really thought this through. 15 years of practice." They stood in silence, the weight of shared history and impossible choices hanging between them. "For what it's worth," Chen finally said, "you were a good commander. The best I ever served under." "I appreciate that, Colonel." "And James Mitchell?" "Yes. He seems like a good man too. Maybe better than Marcus Hale ever was." The reception concluded without further incident. Guests departed, unaware of the confrontation that had occurred floors below. General Kincaid paused at Mitchell's checkpoint on his way out. "Thank you for your service tonight, young man." Mitchell nodded. "Just doing my job, sir." Kincaid lingered, studying his face one more time. "I could swear I know you from somewhere." "I have one of those faces, sir. People say that a lot." The general smiled, accepting the explanation, and departed. Colonel Chen left without making eye contact with Mitchell, respecting the boundary he'd established. As the museum returned to its nighttime quiet, Dr. Reeves approached the security station. "Quite an evening, Mitchell. Police said you scared off some burglars." "Right place, right time, ma'am. I'm recommending you for a commendation. That kind of vigilance deserves recognition." "That's not necessary, Dr. Reeves. I was just doing my job." She smiled. Always so humble. It's a rare quality these days. After she left, Mitchell completed his final security check of the night. He walked through darkened galleries filled with artifacts from wars spanning centuries, medals, uniforms, weapons, and photographs of soldiers who had served and sacrificed. In the Medal of Honor gallery, he paused before a specific display. Among the honored dead was a name he recognized: Colonel Marcus Hale, Task Force Phantom, killed in action October 12, 2010. The citation read, "For extraordinary heroism and selfless sacrifice in combat operations against enemy forces." Colonel Hale's actions saved countless lives and represented the highest traditions of military service. Mitchell stood before his own memorial, feeling the weight of the lie and the necessity of it. 3 months passed. James Mitchell continued his work at the National War Museum with the same quiet efficiency. He scanned badges, monitored cameras, ensured protocols were followed. But twice a week, he received encrypted messages on his burner phone. Updates from Colonel Chen about Task Force Phantom's archived files, now properly secured against further attempts at erasure. Information about the investigation into who had ordered the museum break-in, an investigation that led to a deputy director's quiet retirement. On a cold morning in March, Mitchell arrived for his shift to find a new exhibit being installed in the Special Operations Wing. Task Force Phantom, the placard read, though details remained classified. Dr. Reeves stood nearby, supervising the installation. "Fascinating unit," she remarked as Mitchell passed. "Operated for nearly 15 years but was so classified that most of their missions remain redacted. All members killed in action or retired into complete obscurity. Sounds like they valued operational security, ma'am." "Indeed. Makes you wonder what it was like, living that kind of double life." She glanced at him. "Do you ever wonder about things like that, Mitchell? About the stories we'll never hear?" He considered the question carefully. "I think some stories are more powerful for remaining untold, ma'am. Some sacrifices matter more when they stay in the shadows." "Perhaps you're right." She smiled. "Well, carry on. And thank you for being such a reliable presence here. It's good to know some things never change." "Yes, ma'am. Some things never change." That afternoon, during his break, Mitchell sat on a bench in the museum's memorial garden. His phone vibrated, a new message from Chen. "The investigation is complete. Files secured. Threats neutralized. You can rest easy, Ghost." He smiled at the old call sign, then deleted the message. James Mitchell would continue working security. He would scan badges, monitor cameras, and remain invisible. Colonel Marcus Hale would remain dead, buried with honors at Arlington. Some legends were meant to be forgotten. Some heroes were meant to serve in silence. And sometimes, the greatest act of courage was choosing obscurity over recognition, choosing service over glory, choosing to remain a ghost when the world would have welcomed you back as a hero. In the Pentagon, Admiral Thomas Webster reviewed a classified report in his office. The document detailed the attempted break-in at the National War Museum and the subsequent investigation. Among the footnotes, barely noticeable, was a single line: "Security guard James Mitchell credited with preventing theft. Background check completed. No connection to classified operations." Webster smiled slightly, knowing exactly what that line meant. He opened his desk drawer and retrieved a sealed envelope, one he'd been keeping for 15 years. Inside was a handwritten note from Marcus Hale, written 3 days before his supposed death in Afghanistan. "Tom, if you're reading this, then the mission went wrong. Don't look for me. Don't question the official story. Some of us are meant to fade away quietly. It's been an honor serving with you. M.H. Webster resealed the envelope and returned it to the drawer, where it would remain until his own retirement. Some secrets were worth keeping. Some sacrifices deserved protection. In the museum's quiet hallways, James Mitchell continued his rounds, a ghost among the living, a legend hidden in plain sight. And that's exactly how he wanted it. Have you ever known someone whose greatest achievements remained forever hidden? Someone who chose obscurity over recognition because the mission mattered more than the medals? The true heroes are often those whose names we'll never know. Their power evident not in what they claim, but in what they protect by remaining silent. From which city are you watching this video today? If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the Quiet Legends for more narratives that honor those who serve in the shadows. Warning disclaimer, this video is a fictional dramatization created for entertainment. It does not depict real people, events, or military operations. Any resemblance to actual persons or events is purely coincidental.